Welcome into Win the Line, presented by the 33rd team. My name is Tanner Kern, joined alongside former CFL defensive lineman Maxx Forde. It's already week 17. The season is almost over, almost time for the playoffs. Sad, but also exciting at the same time. And we're going to break down every single offensive line and defensive line mismatch that you need to know this week. So, Max, we're starting with the Philadelphia Eagles defense against the Arizona Cardinals offense. Philadelphia Eagles obviously bounced back in a big way against the Giants. They had lost 3 straight heading into that game, found a way to win. What's your thoughts on this matchup off the top? Is Philadelphia going to shut down Arizona?
Yeah, I think they got the pieces too. Obviously, they've struggled through the air as a whole defense, but here, looking at the line matchup, that trench matchup, you've got guys that you can rotate through. And I know we've said that last few weeks they've been a little bit hit or miss, but they've still got the talent there, and they've got the depth as well. On the inside, you've got a guy like Fletcher Cox, kind of that veteran that leads up the group, and then you got those young guys and Jordan Davis, and you've got rookie of the year favorite there. Drawing a blank right now. I can't believe it because we've been talking about him so much all year.
Yeah, it's Jalen Carter, I think you're talking about. Yeah, Jordan Davis. Yeah. All these guys just get after. And I think the biggest thing about the matchup this week is the Arizona Cardinals want to come into this game and run the football. So when you're looking at guys like Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, and Fletcher Cox, they're going to be very critical in stopping the run this week. So, going back to your playing days, knowing you're going against the run-heavy team, are you more excited as a defensive lineman, or do you want to rush the passer?
I mean, we used to have a saying that sacks get stacks. The sacks get you paid a little bit, so you like to do that, and it's fun to get to the quarterback because you don't get to hit him regularly. So I will say that probably rushing the quarterback's a little bit more fun on the defensive side, but we also had a saying that you got to stop the run to earn the right to pass rush. So it's one of those things where you gotta earn that right by stopping the run. It's a little bit of chicken or the egg kind of a thing. So I know for you guys in the offensive line, I know you kind of like to lean on that run and get physical. So it's a little bit little opposite from that. But I mean, when you can stop the run and they can't do anything all game, it's a good feeling either way. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me in practice, this might make me sound lazy a little bit, but I always love pass blocking in practice, a little more laid back, stay off the quarterback, a little less pressure there. But in the game, you always want to lean on the run because if you're leaning on the run, chances are you're up in that football game and find a way to dominate it. My big question to you, though, is the secondary just hasn't been good, right? I know we talk about offensive line, defensive line on this show, but Philly's secondary has been getting lit up. We saw signs of it last week, even against the Giants, when Darius Slayton beat him over the top for a 69-yard touchdown in crunch time, really. So, looking at this defensive front, how critical is it getting to Kyler Murray, keeping him in the pocket for the secondary success this week?
Yeah, it's huge. He's a guy that can extend plays, obviously, with his legs, kind of roll outside the pocket and give the receivers a chance to get downfield. So you really got to make sure you've got that contained. I know we've talked about that on the show before. They're going to need the production from guys like Josh Sweat, Son Reddick on the edge. Make sure they keep him in the pocket and then get that pocket push in the middle with those interior guys we were talking about earlier. So if they can get to them on time when they're supposed to, it takes away some of those deep shots that they can take. And I mean, you can still generate big plays with those quick hitters like slants or something like that. But I think the line has a good opportunity to be able to shut down some of those big passing plays that are happening. Try to help out the secondary that's struggling a little bit.
Definitely. I think if the Eagles limit the ground game here, they find a way to roll. 10.5 points is still a lot for an Eagles team that's been shaky, but I do like them to come out and dominate this game. Obviously, you do as well. We've got a bunch of people watching on Twitter right now. If you guys want to head over to YouTube, that's the best place to watch. You see the clear-cut view of both me and Max's face on there. You can ask questions. But if you are on Twitter asking questions right now, make sure you tweet at me at TannerCurrent_ or at Maxx Forde. We can answer them throughout the show. We got the phone right here to do that. Moving into our next mismatch here, we have the San Francisco 49ers defense versus the Washington Commanders offense. This is a bad week to be the Washington Commanders. You have to play the 49ers now after they just got blown off the field by the Baltimore Ravens. I think we're going to see a different intensity from the San Francisco team, but the scoreboard doesn't really tell the full story of that football game. The 49ers defense was not that bad last week. They really struggled forcing turnovers. They struggled getting sacks and TFLs. But overall, the offense is what killed the 49ers. I think this defense continues to come out and do exactly what they've done all season in this game against the Commanders, whether they're a little more angry or not, and find a way to dominate it. So how do you see this matchup going?
Yeah, it's a great bounce back spot after that game, which they did put the first points on the board with that safety there. So it's great bounce back spot for
Ref
them
help too.
though. Yeah, yeah, that was a crazy play. I don't know how I'd feel if I was Lamar Jackson on that because I know the referee's part of the field, but obviously, just a little bit unfortunate there for our offense. But as a defensive guy, you love to see the little safety go in there. So, I had to shout that out. But as far as this week, the 49ers, great bounce back spot against the Commanders offensive line, who's really struggled all year. They've been a good matchup for a lot of teams. And the 49ers just like they've got a stable of guys in there. Like we said, they've added to it throughout the season, getting Gregory and Chase Young leading up to the trade deadline. And they already had a bunch of guys in like Javon Hargrave, obviously Nick Bosa. And they've just got guys that they can roll through. And early on, the sack numbers weren't there. And last week, like you said, the sack numbers might not have been there, but the pressures were there. And the sacks have started to come later in the season. It's just a really strong unit. And going against a unit that's one of probably the bottom offensive lines in the league. And you'll see a new quarterback in there. I know Jacoby Brissett has a lot of NFL experience, so I'm not going to sit here and say it's like they're facing a rookie quarterback. But, guy hasn't played in a long time for an extended, like a start and got an extended action. So a chance to kind of try to take advantage of that against a team that is in the dregs a little bit right now.
Yeah, I mean, I hate blaming an offensive line for a quarterback's problems, but I think this Commanders offensive line really didn't help Sam Howell develop this year. I mean, one of the top quarterbacks in terms of passing yards per game, but he turned the ball over all the time. That's just because Washington, they're allowing 4 sacks per game. That's third worst in the NFL. They're not giving him time to settle into the pocket. So I can't necessarily blame Sam Howell. I think it's probably the right move to, keep him out this year and hopefully rebuild the offensive line and figure out what he can do to improve next season. But overall, I just can't stand this offensive line for the Commanders. I think they're going to get absolutely dominated. So where does the defensive success start this week for San Francisco to set the tone coming into this game?
Well, I mean, you've got one of the best defensive players in the game in Nick Bosa. And whenever you have a guy like that, you want that's your tone setter. That's the guy that you want to come out and let the opposing team know right away out of the gate. And like you said, the Commanders allowed about 4 sacks a game, so he has the opportunity to go up against a front that's allowing guys to get to the quarterback. He's one of the premier rushers in the game. I think that's where it all starts, really. Washington's also been one of the teams that's passed the most in the NFL, so that also is just from a volume perspective, that pass rush. I know we talked about earning the right to pass rush just a second ago, but the Commanders kind of pass early and often, so it gives you a chance to get in there without necessarily earning that right. So I think you want to see that pass rush, especially from the premier guys, kind of set up the rest of the game.
Yeah, they throw it all over the field. I expect them to do that in this game. They're going to have to as well. If San Francisco responds on offense too, which I expect them to, they're going to put up points. That means Washington has to answer. So moving into everyone's favorite part of the show where we tell you how to set your DFS lineup a little bit. We have the Denver defense against the LA Chargers offense for our first budget play of the day, $2,900. I really like this play. But first, Max, before we talk about that, I want to ask your opinion on the Russell Wilson situation, how he was expected to lead an NFL franchise while knowing that the team was going to move on from him, and the fact that they wanted him to modify his contract in the process. So just from a player's perspective, knowing this was going on with the quarterback, no matter what position you're playing, how does that impact you?
Man, those locker room dynamics, when something like that's going on, you never want to focus on somebody else's contract situation. It's obviously a business. Everybody has to watch out for their own contract situation and all that. But I mean, you couldn't tell over the last few months as this was going on, because Russell Wilson went about business as normal. Obviously, in Denver, it hasn't gone as well for him as it did in Seattle. But over the last couple of months, they've put together a nice string of wins that brought them back into that playoff race. So I don't know if the other guys in the locker room were aware of it or not. But if you are, you just kind of got to try to tune those kinds of things out, because it's your job to. You got to focus on the next opponent at hand. And every week there's guys coming in and out. Normally it's not your quarterback, but you've got guys. The bottom of the roster churns a lot in professional football. So always new faces, new guys, and all of that. And when it's the quarterback, it's a little bit different because that's a special position with a lot of highly paid athletes. But you just got to try to tune it out, focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, I mean, a quarterback that you spent a ton of money on, I get it was during a different regime, but I just think that's going to really impact how this team comes out this week. They're either going to respond in a big way or they're going to take a backseat and say, hey, we're packing in for the year. But I do like them against the Chargers offense here. Easton Stick has been efficient, though I want to give him his props. But this Denver defense has also been solid as well. If you take out the Miami game early in the season, we say it every single time we talk about them. Yeah. They've actually been a pretty efficient unit. They held the Pats to 59 yards rushing last week, forced a turnover. And the Chargers do give up sacks as well, 19th in that category. They haven't been able to run the ball all season long. So do the Denver Broncos keep that same trend alive for the Chargers? Or is LA going to be able to come in here and establish the run? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the Denver Broncos can shut them down, definitely. You talked about Easton Stick coming in. Obviously, it's a big difference from Justin Herbert there. Teams have been responding with the interim head coaches this year, it seems like. It's been a little bit of a trend. But when you've got your backup quarterback and an interim head coach, it's a little bit it's not quite a stable situation, I should say. So Easton Stick, I know is going to come out there giving his all, but at the same time, I don't expect him to be able to lead this offense when Justin Herbert was struggling leading this offense at the end of his season there. So I don't see them turning it around against the defense in Denver that's been playing really solid football. And when we talk about that complementary football piece here, Stidham coming in, obviously, first start of the year. He did this last year, too, in Vegas and had some solid game film there. So I think that against the Chargers defense that struggled all year long, it's a good spot for him to be getting his first action because they've been a team that you can score on, and I think that helps the defense as well. Just put the Chargers in that kind of catch-up mode that we just talked about with the other matchup and lets the Broncos earn that right to pass rush again, because once you get that game script, you get guys get after the quarterback. It allows you to call blitzes a little bit more freely maybe, and I think that can happen with this game, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the biggest part of this game is going to be the fact that the LA Chargers haven't been able to run the football at all. So Denver knows they can kind of pin their ears back and go, which makes it really hard for an offensive lineman. Like I look at late in games when there's a couple minutes left and the team's down by a few scores and they're just throwing the ball. Like that's the worst situation to be in for an offensive lineman. This is a bad situation for the LA Chargers offensive line just because they can't get it going with their ground game. So moving into our final matchup here, the New York Giants defense against the LA Rams offense. The Giants are priced at $2,500. Max, this was one of your ideas for this one. I'm not as keen on New York, I think, as you are, but break it down for me.
Yeah, I think that both of these teams in this matchup are a little bit inconsistent. And I think that kind of variance can kind of come the Giants' way if it hits right. You've seen the Giants' defense put together some weeks where they've looked really solid. They've kept them in the game, and they've frankly looked dominant some weeks. There's other weeks where they've looked like they've been dominated. And on the other side of that, you also have a Rams offense that there's weeks where Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp look like they can't be stopped. Matt Stafford's getting the time he needs and all of that. There's other weeks where they look stuck in the mud. So it's just kind of one of those things where I can also very easily see a scenario where the Rams come out and completely take over this game on offense. But I think the range of outcomes in this matchup is very wide. And for the price that you're getting, I think it's one that's worth playing there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp obviously get a lot of attention here, but a guy that's been dominating for the Rams is Kyren Williams. He has just seemed to run over everyone in his path. So when you look at this New York Giants defense, as a former defensive lineman yourself, like how are you going into this matchup knowing that there's a really hot running back in the backfield for the team you're going against?
Yeah, at risk of saying the same thing for the third time here, you got to earn the right to pass rush, and that's by stopping the run. You've got guys that can do it. I've said it before on here that Dexter Lawrence, when he's at his best, is one of the best defensive linemen in this game right now. So he's a guy that specializes in stopping the run with as a nose tackle there. Can rush the passer as well when he gets that opportunity, but they've got him in there. They've got a guy like Jihad Ward also able to make some stops in there in the run game from time to time. Runs hot and cold a little bit, but they've got some guys in there that can stop the run. You just got to make sure that you're resetting that line of scrimmage, kind of getting that knockback. Offensive and defensive line coaches always talk about that. Try to reset the line of scrimmage in your favor. So, like if the line of scrimmage is like a yard back in the backfield, it makes it a little bit harder for a running back to get those reads because everything's happening faster. So if they can just get that little bit of push at the beginning of the play, I think that'll help them. And they've got the personnel that's capable of doing it. They just, like I said, they've got to be at their best. And sometimes they haven't been, but at their best is the defensive front that can cause problems.
Definitely. So Dexter Lawrence, 4 solo tackles last week against Philly. He's locked in. I think we see a big game out of him, and that's the way to shut Kyren Williams down. So if you had to pick between one, Max, are you going with the Denver defense for $2,900 or saving yourself $400 and taking a risk on the Giants?
I know I hedge a lot on this answer. I probably play a little bit of both just to get some differentiation. But if I had to go in on one, it'd probably be Denver because it's a little bit more. I think there's a better path to getting a win on that DFS defense there. I think that the Giants defense is definitely one of those plays that's a little bit more volatile, and that can definitely end up burning you. But if it hits right, you get those $400 extra to spend, you get a little bit better player somewhere else. So I think it's worth playing in some spots, but if I got to choose one, it's got to be Denver this week.
Yeah, I got to go with Denver too. I just think betting on consistency at this point is better than betting on the volatile play. But again, there's huge upside with the Giants. So depending on how many lineups you're putting, it's definitely good to include both here. But anyways, Max, that was week 17. We're through another week. We'll be on week 18 next week, and that's the conclusion of the regular season. That's playoff time. So things have been good here. Hopefully we can keep it going, keep our momentum going on our picks and all that, and move it into the next week. But we appreciate you guys joining us on the 33rd team. Make sure you guys check out the YouTube channel, check out the website. All the content you would want to know is on there. Also, Discord is linked down below too as well. So Max, you have offensive line, defensive line ratings coming as well, right?
Oh, yeah. Coming up for the playoffs here, we'll have a refresh on the rankings. So we'll get all the playoff teams in there. So it'll be the 14 playoff teams. That won't be all 32. But, yeah, we're going to have a refresh on rankings coming up here in a few weeks. So excited to get that done. And when they're up, come check them out. Until then, you got the midseason rankings to check out where we were at a few weeks ago. And, yeah, just excited to get some playoff football coming up here.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us for prime time.
Definitely. Make sure you guys check that out. Check out the 33rd team. We'll be back next week at normal time on Wednesday. So hope to see you then, guys. Make sure you drop your questions in the comments. We'll get back to you there. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Win the Line.